I call to order the February 5th meeting of the Museums and Cultural Arts Commission. May we have roll call?
And I'll do the minutes and roll call. Can you guys hear me today on this? Okay, perfect.
Mm.
Yes or no? No?
Oh,
Can you hear me? Yes, no? No? The light is on this too, so I don't know. Can you guys talk on your side? Can somebody talk?
I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties.
Yes. Amp, if you're in the back, can you check and see if the audio is on the mic?
Is this mic working?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, mine's coming through? Okay.
Okay,
So if mine's coming through, I'm just going to try to talk loud. Okay. If that's better, I can talk loud.
so
Okay, great.
you're going to do roll call then?
I'm gonna do roll call. Commissioner Caldy. Commissioner Wachowski.
Here.
Commissioner Kimsey.
Present?
Commissioner O'Neill. Commissioner Fulop. Commissioner Evans, are you attending remote? I don't see them. And Commissioner Turgeon notified me that she would be missing this meeting. She's out of town.
All right.
So we do have a quorum. We have 5 commissioners on site right now.
Okay, so we will start with the consent agenda.
Commissioner Evans.
Oh.
Commissioner Evans is present remotely.
Evans
Awesome.
is
There you are.
remotely. All right, he's lining.
Thank
okay
you.
now.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans.
So we'll start with the consent agenda. Did anyone have any discussion or problems with anything on the consent agenda or comments?
There is no consent today. We don't have the minutes.
Okay.
We'll have
So
it
we're
on.
going to end that.
Yeah.
And is there someone online that wishes to speak today?
And just a reminder, if you'd like to speak, we received no written comments. And that there's no one inside council chambers at the time. But if you'd like to comment, raise your hand, or if you're on contacting via phone, dial *9. So at this time, if anybody would like to make any public comments, please raise your Zoom hand or dial *9.
And I don't see anyone here present in chambers.
Okay.
Okay, so shall we start with the Colton Hall art exhibits? Brian, with your informational reports and comments.
Yeah, so this is a pretty kind of quick agenda item. But essentially what we would like to do is we had last year and the prior year, we had some great in terms of we worked with Monterey County Historical Society on the Pat Hathaway exhibit, and we did an exhibit of photos there. It was a great turnout, in our opinion, on having that as a show. And then recently we had a different photos that we've placed in that I had in the Monterey County Monterey Board of Supervisors. We had like 1849 and different photos there that were blown up. We put those in there. We had an art exhibit with our Monterey County Open Studios, and then did a Youth Arts Collective art show in there as well. All of those bring in new people into Colton Hall, or they bring in community members and citizens back into Colton Hall for a new purpose. So we think that bringing in more exhibits 2026 would be great. One of the first ones that I'd like to do, and I'm in contact with the fire department about, is that the fire department at their fire department admin and at Fire Station 12, which is on Hawthorne, have old archives of fire department history. And I've also been in touch with the Monterey Police Department, because those are two not exactly art exhibits, but they would be 2 exhibits that I think would have a lot of public interest in terms of seeing the history of the Monterey Police Department, seeing the history of the Monterey Fire Department, and working with those departments to have something and have events at some point. The one thing with the fire department, we know that NCIP did fund additional improvements at Station 12. So I think there might need to be some time where that stuff leaves Station 12 anyways. So it would be, I'm going to be meeting with their, the fire station team in the coming weeks to kind of discuss what that might look like. But I feel like those would be 2 really interesting exhibits for us to have in Colton Hall, and then possibly open it up for some other type of art exhibits, whether that's plein air group, whether that's some other local young artists, again, Youth Arts Collective. But I feel that that would be really positive way for us to use the Colton Hall. And I think bringing in, I thought that having a commissioner assigned so that we could bring it back, we could either do this and bring back like a formal proposal to the full commission and at a later time of what we'd like to do for the timeline, or do we bring in a single commissioner to kind of work with through this offline and just hammer everything out? But happy to answer any questions, comments on that. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I have a couple of comments. First, congratulations on, I've been to several of the events at Colton Hall, and they were both, I mean, the ones I went to were very interesting. One I would propose, well, with the police department, it'd be nice to tie in the Monterey jail, you know, and tie in the whole history of that and how that evolved. One item in the future, and it might take some time, but I think it would be well worthwhile, is to do one on the public schools in Monterey, since it's right. I mean, Colton Hall was the first public school. I had it. So just the evolution of the schools, where do they go from there, and all that. But no, I think it's great what you're doing.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner Evans?
I'm curious how you plan to display the art. Are you going to put them on easels and so people walk around them, or are you going to? Is there space on the walls? Exactly how does this all go about? I think it's a great idea, but I'm just concerned about how you plan to actually do it.
Yeah, so what we, part of the grant that I had with last year with Community Foundation Monterey County is I bought an expanding art display. And we use that for Youth Arts Collective. And what it is it all folds up, it's on rollers, and then it has hangers so that we can hang art. And so we use that for hanging our art panel on there. It's not I will say it's not the most beautiful kind of item out there, but it's functional. It's functional. It's what we could use in that space and close it back up and put it out there.
And you use that for Pat Hathaway.
Well, Pat Hathaway, I think we use the grids. We have some other grids that we used in there, and
Okay.
I worked with Susan and James to install all of those over there too, but similar. But we have some equipment already. It doesn't have a huge amount. I will say for like fire and police, we would probably want to look at some the current school cases. Go back to what Commissioner Wachowski was mentioning, is that we have the exhibit on the schools has been there for close to 40 years, I believe, on the wall that has history. And I think that would be good to kind of use that in a rotation. But I've looked at photos from, I think, the 1960s, and there was a photo of like the handcuffs and the jail key and all that. And so I think that using those cases, which haven't been rotated out, we would use some of the cases that are in like kind of the museum admin space that currently have the school stuff. We would use the locking cases like that so that we could put stuff like badges and pins and things that we don't want somebody to, you know, just have hand access to, something like that. Have them in those cases, and then have other stuff that like photos on the panels that we know people could walk in and out. That's where I think, and then larger items, we may have to bring over tables or stands or something.
Is there any
Okay. Yep.
to work on that project? Volunteer?
Commissioner Evans is trying to
Commissioner Evans, did you have another comment?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, you have your Zoom hand up.
Oh, let me take my hand down.
We don't have a volunteer.
I think if it's fine, I mean, also, I just want to, if the commission is good with this proposal and us kind of going forward with these projects, and I'll mention also, like in my staff report later, our staff report was about the open art studios. We did that with the Monterey County Arts Commission and had an artist out here to show off their artwork. The change for this year, and I need to get back with them, is that I would like to have it as a way for us to highlight city artists, so city staff art,
Mhm.
because we had people that were artists chosen by the Arts Council, but we should be highlighting our city staff and their artwork. And so I felt like that would be a way for us to do that, but just using this as a way for us as a staff to kind of come up with our calendar, go through, and if the commission is okay, we'll go forward. And then let you guys know at future meetings what we have planned, if that's okay as well. Okay.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, no further discussion on that. Move to item
Oh,
2, the activity report.
So you'll just keep us posted, Brian, on the status of those and when they're gonna go up and what are they gonna include and all that.
Yeah, exactly. We'll put that out in the future commission meetings and everything and what
Yeah.
we're doing. And then we'll also, because I find that what I would like to do is have more opportunities this coming year as however we can, to have opportunities for commissioners to be there at the events and everything too. I think those would be nice events for us to gather, and have, and even partnering with the school and school district and saying what might work for you guys for having an exhibit here. So I think those would all be good.
Okay, and item 2.
And if there's any public comment on this item, anybody raise your Zoom hand or no public comment? Okay. Did you want to move to the next?
Yes,
Sure.
yeah, activity
you.
report.
All right. So want to highlight we have the Cannery Row Days in the beginning of the report, the activity report. We had Cannery Row Days is a program we do through the library every year. And we partner with a number of our nonprofit groups and people that are historians through the area about Steinbeck and everything. And this year's was Travels with Charlie. And I asked our artifact specialist, Brianna Schwerling, to work with our local history librarian, Kathy Lowe, on a series of programs. And we had a number of different programs for that series of talks and events and everything like that. So I was really happy with that. And then Brianna and our assistant library director, Melissa Mejia, went to Emergency Kit for Wet Salvage of Museum Collections. I believe that was at Cal State University, Monterey Bay. And that was something that was, I believe the state library was funding how to deal with like wet salvaging, like if things get wet in your archives, how to deal with it. So that was a training course that they went along with Kathy Lowe, our local history librarian. So it's always important when you think about having sprinkler systems in archives and how do you deal with, with damage to archives and things like that. The page 6 of the packet, you'll see some of the visitor statistics. And as I mentioned on here, the open studios, they had on that first weekend, 214 visitors. And that next following weekend, there was 238 visitors. And that was, I think it was a great opportunity for us to use Colton Hall in another way to bring in art and artists in Colton Hall to increase our traffic inside of there. The Christmas in the Adobes, December 12th and 13th. And thank you for our folks that volunteered that day. I think it was really, first off, I think the weather really helped. Having wonderful weather that weekend and having power that weekend were really helpful. But they counted 900 visitors. I thought we had more, but that's what Brianna put. Okay. But it was a very busy 2 days on there. And we went through a lot of apple cider and cookies. I think we bought out all the apple cider they had at Trader Joe's so we could heat it up, all the Jackery boxes to eat everything. So that's where you'll see Colton Hall had a pretty solid, we put on the October, November, December, and January month, so you can see that. And December, because of Christmas and the Adobes, even so, I think, and then having those events, having some special events in there too, really has helped us increase our attendance over there at Colton Hall. Pacific Biological Laboratories, there's just a number of, we don't do, there was just one basically private tour in December. That's why you only have 15. We didn't do the public tours. We generally do the public tours January through November. And we've been advertising those on the library website. We've been advertising all of our museum events also on the library website and newsletter. Reason being, my newsletter goes out to 11,000 people, or 12,000 people, wherein the prior newsletter went out to 150 registrations, right? So it's by combining these, we get a much broader reach, as well as we know that the weekly on their events calendar, they pull from our events calendar. So everything we put on the library calendar, they put on the public events calendar on the weekly. So we're getting a lot more traction by putting our museum, Colton Hall, Pacific Biological Laboratory tours, anything like that, putting them on our library calendar is getting more awareness. So I think that's helpful. And Presidio Monterey Museum, reminder, we're open Saturdays and Sundays right now, 10 to 4, 1,086. And then I did put on the mobile tour usage. These are people using either their phone or the website for the mobile tour to track down that, where they have the QR codes and how to visit Monterey Walking Tour app. And that's 2,787. And I tracked that through the website management. And still with that, the mobile phone tours, 260 callers. So that's what we're getting right now. So all of that. So
Is that 260 part of the earlier one, 2787, or no, it's separate?
oh, it's separate.
Separate. Okay.
Yeah, so it's separate from that. We have like the mobile phone tour component on there. I will say also on that, one thing that we've wanted to do or plan to do is the marketing component of that, of like, and I may have mentioned this before, which is that certified folder is the distribution point at like the hotels, the airport, the welcome centers, and they have all the distribution in the brochures. And our brochures, I had them stop distributing them before because it had the out-of-date information, and it was the stuff that was changed during the pandemic. So we may want to go back and put back out on there about how people can explore Monterey, but we have to redo the map, redo some of the content on there, highlight the walking tour, highlight some of that. But those signs, the mobile tour usage, those are those little signs and the large signs that were put out at the different parks. So
Yeah, I'm curious, Brian. I wonder if you could request, and I'm sure they must keep those statistics, state parks and MHAA. What are their monthly totals for a couple months or whatever in comparison? MHAA, of course, has the Stanton Center and Casa Serrano. State Parks has many buildings. I don't know how many are open. I think they're keeping the one next to the Museum of Art. That seems to be open a lot more now.
Casa
one-
Gutierrez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I volunteer off work. I'm on the Monterey State Historic Park Association board.
Oh, okay.
And so we've been talking because Casa Gutierrez has been operating as an art site,
Art gallery.
you know, an art gallery, just like Fridays and Saturdays. So I don't remember the numbers. I think it's about 30 a day,
Yeah.
I believe, are going into on those. So you're looking at, pretty similar to what we'd see on like Presidio Monterey Museum,
Okay.
essentially. Like,
But we could have some synergy there with the Museum of Art and then the law office that they just bought, and then Casa Gutierrez. So there could be 3 sort of art museums or photograph museums or whatever.
right. And I think that the thought I had with, I know the Museum of Art is really interested in that, kind of the area, and they built that little parklet
Yeah.
outside of, and I'm talking with state parks. I think having that kind of corner parklet, over corner at the end of Cayupi, that has been helpful for having like an A-frame sign, art
Right.
museum here, and more people are kind of walking in around in that area. So I think that increases that. So when you partner and do everything,
It'd be
but I
nice
do,
to have some benches in that triangular area, and who knows, maybe a piece of sculpture or whatever
yeah,
eventually.
yeah. So it's, I think I don't know the totals, at the,
Oh, no, I know.
but at Casa Serrano or,
Yeah.
those other ones. But I will say, you know, I think a lot of this, the prior map that we used to hand out was done years ago when it was a Preserve America grant, which meant that MHAA, state parks, City of Monterey, these agencies all worked together on that. And that was 10 plus years ago. So since that 10 years ago, the funding dried up, a lot of that stuff, everyone's doing their own marketing. But for a while, 10 plus years ago, people were doing historic Monterey and marketing together. How do you market this as a group of sites together?
Yeah.
And then the Monterey mural, and you'll see there's on the packet, page 7, 4 lower tiles separated and fell off.
Mhm.
And we're looking at met with Architectural Resources Group, who was the one that worked on the, I believe, 2002, but also 2015. So like 2002, there was a restoration project that was installed in 1984, right above the entrance of the Monterey Conference Center. It was restored by Architectural Resources Group. And then 2015, they took it off, restored, cleaned up the tiles, restored any cracks. But they put in the recommendation of how to do the installation, but they did not do the actual installation in 2018. So with that, we brought them out to look at, they're going to have an engineer look at how or why the tiles have fallen off. We still don't know exactly why those tiles have fallen off, but there are cracks on other ones. And that's a main artery. Where that is where the hotel goes to provide food for
Yeah.
the conference center. So we have to have that pathway open because there's always operations going on between those sites. So worked with Public Works and Engineering, and we put up the temporary bracing up there to prevent any really damaging cracks, damage to that mural. I contacted the artist's son to let them know about that we're bracing it and we're working on restoration. And I am hoping that we get they're going to start getting people out here with a proposal for next steps. But my feeling is that most likely we're going to need to take down the mural,
Wow.
store it, and have it done professionally, look back at how to reinstall it. So but we're going to contract that out with Architectural Resources Group and their group of what their recommendations for taking it down and moving it up, because it's really critical, I think, for our art collection and our history to have this mural over.
Why aren't we going back to the original contractor? I mean, when they installed it after the conference center was completed, they knew a service delivery road was going to be there, right? And the vibrations and whatever. So I can see us contacting ARG, but what about the original contractor who built it? I'm sorry, who installed it?
Yeah, from my understanding, that's past the warranty on the material, past the warranty on the contract with that contractor. From looking at,
But they still owe us. They owe us an explanation.
well, so I think that's where they want to get the engineer in there too, to see what exactly, was it the material? Was it the installation? We don't know yet. So we don't know yet, but we're getting somebody to they're going to bring in somebody to do the investigation of that to see, was it moisture? Was it installation? We really don't know. So I don't want to be aggressive on that. I want to make sure that we do all of our research and then see
Sure.
where we can go forward before going.
Did they actually break or they just came loose?
They actually did not break, but they came off and fell off.
Oh, my goodness.
It was the lower 4 tiles came off. The lower part actually bulged out, popped off the wall, but it's being held up by the seam. So the backing of it popped off the wall on some of the tiles, but because the mortar, the joints are holding them together. So the bracing is up on the front of it so that if it pulls off this way, it's not going to fall, like fall down. It's basically going to push against the brace, and just the bracing is going to hold it up. So
So you're convinced,
up in there too.
so you're convinced that they weren't hit by a truck or something that was passing along that area. 'Cause I've always wondered why we didn't put in like a low guardrail so that vehicle couldn't get close to it. It would rub on their tires before they would actually get close to the mural.
I will say they have a security camera on the outside facing towards there, and it just fell. It wasn't hit.
Oh,
It just fell. Basically somebody found the tiles loose. I think they called a police report in, and then the conference center took a look and said, no, it just fell. So, but that's where they have to figure out, was there anything else that happened before, anything else that would have happened that caused this? And I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Evans, because I think that was when the first installation was over the entrance. So it was in a protected area where you couldn't access it. And when they did this one, it's next to the walking part, and there's nothing that protects the front of it. So I do think it's something, when we talk with ARG with that, like ask them anything on those.
And is the artist still alive?
No.
no.
All right, shall we move to item 3?
Yeah.
Pacific Biological Lab
No,
accessibility.
still not finished with the
Oh,
report.
We're
just
not finished with all the art.
Well, just in case, or if you don't have any questions, that's okay. Just the Enza mural has been installed over in the tile mural has been installed over in the city manager's garden, right over in there. I really think it looks quite beautiful. I'm really happy with that. And then the angel storage racks on page 9, we had those installed. They were on wood storage racks, which were falling apart, and talked with our one of our board of library trustees chair, she had their business Sutton Ag donate and create these racks so we could store the angels so that they're secured in there. And NCIP project updates. So that's also want to highlight for folks, especially on the commission, that we did have, thank you for Commissioner Evans for presenting on the Colton Hall project to the NCIP. Was ranked 4th out of the votes, and that's for $350,000 recommended for increased drainage, water, basically the stuff that we've talked about here at Colton Hall. What that is that we have to look at the drainage solutions, the hardscaping around the building. So this would be in tandem with the work that we're doing for repointing. Because if you're doing the repointing, which is all of the mortar between the stones at certain areas, for that to last, you also need to do the hardscaping to prevent the water from preventing further damage. So if it's a issue, we're doing both together. But that was approved, and council had also directed the NCIP commission to come back with $3 to $4 million of prior projects to defund, and final approval of the projects are going to come back at a later date. So what they gave to NCIP was a list of different projects and had them vote. Every one of their commissioners voted between 0 to 10. So I believe, I'm not sure the exact number of feet. I think it's like 500 feet or 500 yards. It's 500 feet or 500 yards. If you live within a project, you have to recuse yourself. So that person, would automatically be a 0 on that project. There's another one that's on here that I missed initially. I'll mention in the packet, but the Lower Presidio Slope Monument Restoration, those are the different stones that are on the slope monument. That was an earlier project for $150,000. That one ranked in terms of, so what they did also is they're doing a running total going down to $7-8 million, and they're presenting this to council at a later date to say, this is what the exercise that you've given us. Now council has to make that decision. Council will come back. So the NCIP commission, so that will be at a later date. But one of the first ones that would be off would be the Lower Presidio Slope Monument Restoration. The shoreline, the next one that I had missed was there's in Via Del Monte Casa Verde underpass hardscape, which is $548,238. What that one would be, would at the underpass at Casa Verde of Highway 1 would be to install a mural or art under that on Caltrans property. So that one was also ranked fairly low.
That's a 548,000 for a mural there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how much they had previously approved on there for that project, which is
Oh.
pretty.
Some of that was for sidewalk. There were some sidewalk development apparently in addition, so it wasn't all mural.
Oh,
The $500,000.
got it. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Evans. So that was,
Quite hear all what Bob said. Do you?
Commissioner Evans was stating that it also included some like walking pedestrian elements underneath there.
I see.
So that makes sense. But so
The
that we have,
Lower Presidio Walkway?
yeah, so then the third one that was lowest would have been the Shoreline Park Fish Hopper Restoration. If you're on the recreation trail and you're going around Sister City Park on your right, going towards New Monterey, on the left, we have what's called a fish hopper, a large fish hopper. It looks kind of like a wooden dumpster, looks really big out there. A big redwood structure, which would have been a fish hopper. And that's where they had those out in the water, and they dumped the fish and they would suction them into the canneries. So that fish hopper, there was a $60,000 allocated towards fish hopper restoration. That was one of the lower ones. The next one was the Lower Presidio Walkway Phase 2. That was $78,000 on there. That one, and then
What is that project though? I was curious.
let me check. I'm gonna have to check.
wait.
Yeah.
Old Monterey Foundation has put in 2 walkways. I've never heard of another phase of a walkway.
I thought, and I could be wrong, would be from going up Private Bolio, like across. You were going up Private Bolio by the creek,
Oh yeah, you mean on the state parks property?
right? State Park's over there. I thought it was over there, but I could be wrong.
You know,
I'll-
we proposed a major work there and state park said they didn't want to do anything on that site because it would just increase the amount of homelessness. So I never heard of a walkway in that area. Just to the left of the Presidio as you're going up.
My impression was that there's a pedestrian cut pathway that goes up to the left of Bolio, where Bolio intersects Lighthouse, and that this improvement was going to be to shape that up and grade it and then put asphalt down, I guess, make it a nice walkway. But it has to be done sort of on top of the surface because, again, of the historical or archaeological possible finds if they actually start digging into the landscape there. I was not clear on what that one was all about. What we proposed a number of years ago was to come through the fence at the end of Hawthorne and cross Bolio with a bike path, which also could be a pedestrian path, and there would be a ramp on the Hawthorne side of Bolio then. But at that time, there was a neighbor at the end of the street that was very opposed to it, so the project died for lack of a second.
Yeah, so I would say, let me look up this one. Trying to see if I could download any of those files. So that one, it was an older, let me see if I can find this on there. And
It was 78,000.
yeah, because it's previously, I don't have I can follow up with that. I'll follow up with that if I can track down more detail, but all I had was just the project card that just had a description because I didn't attend the meeting on that one. I just know it was partially, I thought it was up like what Commissioner Evans was talking about. I thought it was on that, on the Bolio side.
Okay.
That's where I thought it was, is coming up off of there. Because 78,000 would be very small for that project
No.
because it is it's a larger project that needs to
You
happen.
know, there is also access from Van Buren. It's not the safest or easiest access, and it's virtually impossible to have that ADA. But I don't think anybody's proposing that.
Right. And then the last one that I saw on the list that I thought would be of interest to the Museum Commission was the Cannery Row worker houses restoration. And the city is currently getting quotes on that. I've been working with our city engineer, Reggie Paulding, on that. Those are the 3 houses which are on Bruce Harris Way across the street from the Pacific Biological Labs next to the aquarium. Those 3 houses were donated by the aquarium to the city when they used to be up at their property where one of their admin buildings are, the park, and they moved them over. And what it is that they've hit extensive rain. There's water damage, there's wood damage. So it's very much like replacing just the damaged wood, possibly replacing some of the glass for the windows, doing termite bagging. Like there's some work that needs to be done for those things to really stand up, but they have not been painted in years. They used to be whitewashed and painted regularly. There's some of that work that just needs to be done correctly. So I'm not sure of the status. That's why that one's in italics in terms of it's currently in progress, because we're getting bids on that. And so that might be, some of these other projects, I believe, were crossed off when they were funded. But happy to answer any other questions regarding the activity report, or if there's any public comment.
Yeah. Shall we move to item 3, the update on Pacific Biological Labs?
Yeah, thank you. So at our last meeting, I discussed the Pacific Biological Laboratories and moving that to the Historic Preservation Commission for them to adopt just in concept the plan for the accessibility plan. So with that, I worked again with Architectural Resources Group on how the report fit with the Secretary of Interior guidelines for historic properties. And we have to do that in terms of submitting any project to be approved through the Historic Preservation Commission. So with that, this proposal would be going to Historic Preservation Commission next week, February 12th. So if any of our commissioners I know that worked on our subcommittee on this, I know Commissioner has resigned from the commission, but I know Commissioner Bukowski's been there and Commissioner Evans. I'll be there on February 12th talking about that. But if you're interested in being there or discussing anything on your opinion, just let me know on that. But we're basically trying to get just the concept plan. That concept plan then basically gets adopted for 3 years. And that what that says is that it's just a way for us to decide that, is this a way that the Historic Preservation Commission will approve a project like that moving forward? This is not the architectural drawings yet at this scale. That would go back to Historic Preservation Commission at a later time. So once we get back and say, yes, we want to do this, I think it gives us a good path for looking for private donors or looking for how do we get this kind of project funded for repair there at the site. And it would adopt some of the earlier historic reports that we have on the site too, that are, there are certain reports on there in terms of the windows that need to be repaired. There's other areas that need to be repaired there in the lab. So as a building is also, it's H1, it's one of the most historic kind of structures here for the city. That's where we go for it.
And it's my understanding ARG proposal is for over $2 million.
That's their cost estimate. We just had them put in a cost estimate, but we're not approving them doing the work and the cost estimate.
No.
What
I
I
guess
mean,
my
this,
question, Brian, would
Yeah.
be, say we did an alternative no, I'm just concerned about the amount of construction on the back, how it's going to change the whole shape of of Ed Ricketts Lab. How about if we did not provide ADA access on site, but we provided it off-site, either with an iPad or through the Intercontinental Hotel? I guess my first question is, would that be acceptable to the Secretary of Interior? And second, how would that affect our current and future uses of Ed Ricketts Lab?
So there's a couple of questions there. Yeah. And then, so what I'll say, let me put this for my notes too. So I'd say the first part about that is current and future use. Those stairs need to be replaced. And so what it
The
does,
stairs in the front.
no, the stairs on the back
On the back.
primarily. Both of them actually, but the front stairs are actually more historic. The front stairs are historic, the rear stairs are not. So if we use the rear entrance, the rear stairs have been replaced, the rear porch, the rear stairs are not replaced. So this project does not adapt the main facility. It changes the porch and the stairs, which are not historic, and putting those and getting a lift and putting stairs that would be accessible. So that would allow us to continue to have access, because I feel that we're at a point where those boards are falling apart in the rear of the building, and we're going to get to a point where we can't get people out the back door to go down that stair. So I would say in the future, there's going to be a very soon future where we're saying, hey, we need to address this anyways. So to me, it's like really getting in there to access that for current use, future use. We need to address that access on there. That part, because of this kind of the reconstruction side of it, because we're not damaging the main structure, I don't see it as, it's not something, I have to go through the report in terms of ARG again, but really, we're not readapting the interior. We're not making major changes to the interior of the building.
You are
More-
enlarging the restroom, right?
Not exactly. So the restroom, we would not enlarge the main restroom. We would keep that the same size. It would be possibly adding another restroom underneath, like underneath the stairs.
I see. So the ADA accessible restroom will not be it will be underneath.
Right. And so that would be something to get on the construction guideline and, when we get the actual architecture plans, that side of it. So I find that we would also have to have that discussion whether we just tell people to go to the aquarium or the hotel, right? To the restrooms, one of the two. If we just say we don't have restrooms, because currently we've been telling people we don't have restrooms. There's publicly accessible restrooms at the walkway next to the aquarium where the staff entrance, where the member entrance used to be at the aquarium, right over there. There's public restrooms which are right there. So we tell people visiting right now, use those restrooms. So that's where I think it's kind of like ideal. And as for the virtual access, we actually are working within our assistant library director, Melissa Meehan, and I've been in contact with, last year we had a private studio working with the Steinbeck Center in Salinas that did a 3D, like a VR tour. We did a meta VR tour, which you sit down and you wear on the headset, and it's a narrated audio tour of VR. So I actually earlier today contacted John Holland, who's the past director of the Steinbeck Center, and he's creating his own nonprofit Steinbeck Experience. He was the one that was working with Lever Studios to create that, about how do we do that as the alternative for tours. So currently, right now, we have the iPad and we show people a YouTube video of the tour done by Susan Schillinglaw. And so instead, what I want to do is, Melissa and I talked about this, is that we would set up days at the library where somebody needed an accessible tour of the site and they could go to the library, which the library is accessible. We have to have Wi-Fi access for the headset, and then they could watch a virtual tour narrated of the lab. And that gives us the accessible option for the site, but it doesn't allow accessible programs. So that's the site. It allows us to still do the tours on that site. And I do think the construction was As I mentioned last time, I think it was like $1,500 a square foot or so, or 2,000 a square foot that ARG was proposing on that site based on access and historic nature, but it wasn't, we were really focusing on external side of it.
Right.
So I don't know what the overall cost would
Would
actually be.
we be allowed to renovate the front portion of Ed Ricketts lab if it's not ADA accessible?
I mean, all of those things, if we renovated anything, would go through Historic Preservation Commission first. We would have to put through a proposal and making sure it went through the standards. I will say that off the top of my head, I know the facade is listed in our design standards for the Cannery Row plan, like that building site. And I know so like the front facade of the wood and the staircase in the front, that's what it originally looked like. There is a little piece of a bar over by the handrail that's by the, what do you call it? The driveway that goes down. That might be able to be amended like that, or the garage door. But anything I think would go through another proposal.
And if I could add, we had an inquiry about using Ricketts Lab for a group. And we're not allowed, I understand, to have chairs, any sit-down thing, because we aren't ADA accessible. So if we had people giving lectures and whatever, I mean, that's just out.
Oh, no, they've given lectures,
No,
of people sitting
Brian,
down. for
well,
fif-
I got this from
15 or
Brian
less.
this week.
So we do the talks, we do the tours, but we can give a tour because we can do a tour because we have the accessible option of the online tour. But we can't do an online, if somebody says, I want to do a special program, which is a special lecture at the lab, we haven't been able to do a tour, we haven't been able to host programs in there. That's been our guidance. We haven't been able to do special programs inside the lab because somebody comes in and says, I have a wheelchair and I can't get upstairs to the second floor. And the earlier design of from that 2019 accessibility report, really you don't want to mess with the front of the building because there's too much to it, which would really damage the integrity of the building. Once we start going into the structure, I think it really damages the integrity of that building.
Any more comment or
Bob,
whatever?
I think was on.
Bob?
Commissioner Evans? did you
Well,
have-
no, I'm with Brian on this. I think that we stay away from the building, but the stairway, the deck in the back and the stairway, which are not particularly historic, I think access through there and having the accessible restroom underneath the stairs, I think that all works very well. It's going to be expensive, but that's what fundraisers are all about. And staying away from, I don't think we should mess with the front of the building. We need to make sure it's painted and preserved and that there are no termites out there, but otherwise we ought to leave it alone because that's where its character is.
Anything else? Yeah.
So with regard to the lift, what is the vision with that? My concern is that if we lift a wheelchair up there and the doorways are still too narrow for ADA access or even the floor,
Mhm.
where are we seeing these wheelchair patrons going once they get up there?
So there's two aspects of it. One is that there may be one is the wheelchair would go down first off to the lower level. And you could do programs at the lower level. So it depends on how you want to do the tours or not. So we could do one of the, I think, big uses of that building, the doorways, your doorways need to be 36 inches, right? Kind of for main access like that. I believe one of the earlier ARG reports on that was the rear door that's in there was actually not original, could be replaced. And there is enough room on that rear door. going into the bar area. So going into the bar area, you are okay going into there if you can go up to that lift. So if the lift goes up into there, it's actually fine. We wouldn't put in the restroom would no longer be used as kind of as a primary restroom. It would just be kind of like, this is a room for you to kind of look at. But I think one of the big areas would be to get people downstairs into the lab area. And that would be okay because we would be able to go for that one would go down and you'd be in the main area. So that would be eventually getting a leveled access in the back because you could do programs outside. You could do, whether people do fundraisers outside or events out there on that back patio and viewing sites on the back patio and on the lab on the inside would be accessible through that kind of low lift. And
They
then,
can go through the garage area where all the specimens are. And
yeah, so that'd be kind of like, I think that would be the main piece is that, if we can get down there is one of the options, but going upstairs, there may need to be replacing the doors because the two doors, actually, the front door is actually pretty weathered too. I think it's getting a lot of water resistance, and that was done replaced in the 1990s. So that was just replaced when they did some restoration work. The front door and the back door were done in the 1990s. So they're not historic either. They could be replaced to fit.
I might point out as one who is now looking at the possibility of being in a wheelchair, that there's a whole industry of travel wheelchairs or self-propelled mobility devices that are 24 inches wide, so that the need for a 36-inch door may not be as much pressure as there would have been in the past.
Good to know.
good point.
And-
That's a great point. On still the issue of the lift,
Mhm.
because if we're talking about going from ground level down into the garage, is it possible that that could be implemented by way of a ramp versus a lift that's going to need a lot more maintenance and hydraulic attention and have to go with it?
So it's at and that goes from back of the building to the very end of the back. So it goes all the way because of the height. It goes all the way back to where the specimens are, and it would actually go over this. You would have to knock out some of the containers, which were restored by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. So the ramp and the other part, so like that was the same thing that was looked at before, was the ramp because of just the slope. It's a pretty steep slope going through the garage. They looked at before the slope from the garage level to get down to the back, and the garage at 18, or is it 12-1 or 18-1, goes from the garage all the way to the back of the house, the slope. The slope goes very long because it's really steep. So to have that, so you either have to, go back and forth to go through it. So I will say we'd probably have like 95% of the time you're going to have people using the stairs. Right. And so we would want to put the stairs in there because it's the same thing like when we have the Colton Hall concerts, you have to design these things. Like when we've had the concerts, it's good to have somebody outside there to go in there. And Chair Kimsey has been there with me at these concerts, and and we've had to go through them, and they are not elevators. I'll just say that they're not elevators. They're not as reliable as an elevator. They do have to have maintenance, and you have to go through, but they're just not the same. And they're not made for using like every day, like multiple times a day, right? So there are something that like you build for accessibility, you build for like when you can, and make sure you have to have somebody there monitoring, you have to have somebody there with it. So when we do that, we'd have to build that in of like, who's going to be there? Who's going to help this person go in and out and be there? But it's the same thing I would say we do when we have Colton Hall concerts, is we just have to have somebody there to do it. But that allowed that lift that was done for Colton Hall has allowed Colton Hall to be open for other events. And I think this would allow that too.
Did we look at a
Excellent.
regular sorry. Did we look at regular elevators? I mean, they're like $20,000 to $50,000. There's no possibility of this very small elevator being used rather than just the lift.
I don't know enough about them. I know I know that because of lifts are kind of what are recommended because they're outdoors and the cost of like what they are, because I know when we looked at the accessibility studies on the library, you're looking at also minimum on a elevator of going in. There's so many elevators now. They are so regulated in terms of like this everything like everything else is, of course, but the buttons that turn off of like how far you have to have the space around the elevator, the space inside the elevator, like the size of the cabinet. The cabinet size has to be extremely large, has to have 36 inches and a 36-inch, like, you know, the full turnaround, all of that size, the lights inside. There's a lot of construction, the hydraulic nature, you know, the hydraulic pump, all of that stuff that has to happen with the elevator. I think the elevator just dramatically increases the cost versus the lift, which is because the lift is, it's called LULA, like limited use, limited action, right? They're not meant, like I mentioned, they're not, you have elevators meant for consistent use, regular maintenance. And then the LULA, you know, our Colton Hall lift will be used during the special events. And occasionally somebody comes by and it's there and it's helpful when we have it, but it's not used every day.
Anything else on that? Okay, so shall we move to commissioner comments? Would you like to start with a comment?
I have no comments at this time.
Okay,
I don't have any.
Maylin? Okay, well, I have a few comments. So, one thing is the Deanza mural that you mentioned. I hope perhaps afterward you can go by and see it. It really is beautiful now that it's been restored and it's right here, so it'd be very convenient. I wanted to remind everyone, February 14th is our next concert. Going to have it on Valentine's Day. I think we've had a very good response already with reservations being made, maybe sold out. I'm not sure.
It is 65 out of 65 right now. So
Well, we'll sell it. It's at always 4 o'clock on Saturdays. And we've had some really wonderful groups. This is the Two Tones. They're performs here locally. They live here locally. So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
What's their name?
Two Tones.
Oh, Two Tones. Okay.
And last of all, I'd like to suggest that we start meeting every month up through May. We have a lot of things on the agenda, and I think this every other month was fine for when we did it. We didn't have a lot of things going on, but right now I think we need to meet the first Thursday of every month. And in May, we'll revisit. We need to do that during the summer. And do we need an actual motion for that?
no. I think I'll just make sure what I just have to make sure is that if I'm out, that Melissa will be our alternate for running the meeting, just so the commissioners are aware that, you know, there might be a time that I'm not here. So
Okay.
I don't know if Commissioner Evans, did you have any comments?
No, other than I'm always amazed at how much you are getting done and all of the different interests you're involved in, Brian.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned.